Life Church International is training Christ-like workers for Christ-like Church through Gospel Light College and Nation-to-Nation Christian University from Dallas, Texas. We offer a certificate, a bachelor's degree and master's degree in biblical studies and community development. The training will prepare you for ministry and the work of God in the church and the body of Christ. Through our different ministry partners, we have classes in Nairobi, Kajiado, Kirinyaga, and Machakos. Contact us through 0748 006112 for the ongoing registration for January 2025.
Elevate TV, advancing kingdom lifestyle.
Good evening, viewers. This is the Gigi Report, and I want to welcome you tonight. Tonight, we have a very interesting discussion, and therefore, I just want to ask you now to go on your social media platforms and just share the link. This is the Gigi Report, and my name is Karen Kibuchi, aka Karen Gigi. So let's take a minute and just share the page with our friends, our networks, and let them know that today we are discussing a very good topic, matters disability education. Let's share the page. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Now, last week, we had a discussion on the Gigi Report about disability advocacy. And I want to thank you, viewers, for the many, many comments that came in. And quite a number of you also asked questions. It is my hope that tonight, as we have this discussion, some of your questions will be answered. But in case they are not answered, please feel free just to comment and ask questions. We are on Elevate TV. We are on Elevate YouTube. We are on Elevate Facebook page. So please kindly just share your comments, ask questions, and we are here to be able to help you, help one another as we try to enlighten ourselves and the publics. So once again, I welcome you to this set. Now, tonight, we are with very good and very interesting guests. We are having a discussion with wonderful ladies who are very smart here, and those who have a passion on this matter in discussion. And I'm going to just ask each one of them to mention their names and just welcome you to the show or just to invite you to this conversation. I'll start with my immediate right. Juliana, please go ahead, invite the viewers.
Yeah, good evening, wherever you are. My name is Juliana Auma. I am a parent. My daughter was born with 2 complex disabilities, Spina Bifida and Hydrocephalus, and that is how I found myself in the disability advocacy space.
Thank you very much, Juliana. Thank you. We'll be hearing about that story a little bit later. Over to you, Madam Rose.
Thank you very much, Pastor Karen. My name is Rose Koros, and karibuni sana viewers to the program. I've been an educator now for about 30 years, and I am very passionate about education as a whole, to typical children and even to those that have special needs. Karibuni.
Thank you very much. And I think right there we start our discussion, matters disability and education. I am aware that this is a matter that is quite has an emphasis here in this country, especially after Kenya signed the UN Convention in 2003, and that is when the matters of disability came to the fore. And I know a journey has been made, but in this show today we are freely going to discuss and see where we are pertaining to issues of education for persons with disability. So now, maybe possibly to begin with, so that our viewers can get to know you, Juliana, you can tell us a bit about yourself, your career, your background, where you are coming from, just who is Juliana?
Okay, Juliana wears many hats. I am a mother, of course. I got my daughter when I was very young. I was in high school, and it was such a struggle. There was no information about this condition, and I gave birth way back even before internet. My daughter turned 30. November 1st. So what I do is that I am a passionate advocate on disability related issues. I am a trained project manager. I do a lot of project management, program coordination, and yeah, that is the most I do. I also love using my hands. I do dressmaking. Yeah. I do hairdressing. I make my children's hair, and I also love making jewelry together with my daughter. Yes.
Thank you, Juliana. Just a little bit more there, just before I come to you, Rose. Juliana, you are a teenage mother, so to speak.
Yes.
So what happened to your education? Just tell us about, I mean, how did it go, and then did you go back to school? Was it possible at that time?
Yeah, when I got pregnant, I was actually in my Form 4, and it was first term. And that pregnancy got me very sick. I couldn't even concentrate in anything. And so I dropped out of school. By the time I was getting pregnant, my mom had already passed on. And I also had younger siblings to take care of. So the time I gave birth, I had a plan of giving birth to my child and then going back to school, because I also love books. Yeah. But my plan didn't happen. You know, we are told that we pray our plan, but it is the Lord who says it is time. In God's time, He will make it happen. So God's time was 10 years after I gave birth. That was God's time. So after giving birth to my daughter, I really struggled with her. It was such a struggle. Even getting her to the hospital, we had to do an ad in the newspaper. I was on standard newspapers, and that is how I was able to go back to school. And my going back to school was not easy as well. I love my earrings. This is what paid my school fees.
Just hold that thought there. Viewers, I want you to just call a friend, to listen to Elevate TV tonight. We are talking about disability and education. And here we have a mother and we have an educationist. And today we are discussing about education. You might know somebody in your neighborhood, in the church, in your social networks, in your religious groupings, who has a child with disability, or popularly known today, persons living with disability, or better still, able differently. Please ask them to log into Elevate TV, social media platforms, or the TV itself, and listen to this story. Peradventure, they may be encouraged. So please share this link and keep talking about it. Now, Juliana, hold that thought there, because it's a story we need to hear today. Rose,
Yes.
briefly, just tell us where you are in terms of career, your background and your career to where you are. Then we dive into matters disability.
Okay.
Yes.
So my name is Rose Koros, as I had mentioned earlier, and I've been in education now for about 30 years or so. And this was not, I know sometimes we say as teachers that you become a teacher when you can't find anything else to do.
Yes.
But for me, I love teaching. I love being a teacher. In fact, I think that the best title to be called is to be called a teacher. So
Wow.
I really love being called Teacher Rose. And for me, I'm very passionate about education, very passionate about not having any child left behind, and making sure that every child is understanding what I'm teaching in class. That for me is what gives me joy. So I've been an educator in different areas.
Yes.
I've been a music educator. I've also studied the Montessori curriculum, which I fell in love with earlier on as a young girl. And then later on also did special needs education.
Wow.
And then also have done Christian education. So in these different areas, I see them as just pieces of a puzzle that God was putting together. They didn't make sense at the time, but now as I look back, it seems to make sense. So having been in education and having taught in several schools, in 2010, we opened a school in Athi River called Diamond Academy. And we ran this school from 2010 till 2020. And in the span of 10 years, we became initially we were not an inclusive school, but we became an inclusive school. We opened up a learning support center. We had special children, and they were in the same setting as typical children. Really, I really enjoyed that. I mean, if ever teaching has been taken to another notch, that was it. And then in 2020, unfortunately, our school closed because of the issues with COVID. But as a result of our school closing, this is actually why I am here where I'm at. It's because I realized that when I met the parents of the children who had special needs, they would tell me that the schools that are around the area where we live were not accepting their children. And for some odd reason, which I cannot explain to this day, that made me so angry. And because I have friends who are directors, I started knocking on their doors and saying, what business is this? You're taking the children who don't have challenges, and then you're leaving my children who have got, where do you expect them to go to school? The ones who don't have challenges, where do you expect them to go to school? And if you can't take all of them, at least take one. Now, the wonderful thing about these friends of mine who are directors, they were very candid with me. And they said to me, you know, Teacher Rose, it's not that we hate your children, but we don't know what to do with them. So what's the point of taking them in and then they're just wandering all over the school and we are wasting their school fees? We don't know what to do. So we started a conversation with them. And I said, would you be willing to admit these children if you outsource that department to me? Outsource the learning support. I will manage it for you. I will help you with setting it up if you want one set up. If you cannot set it up because of the finances of the school, I will come with my material so that these children can be having their lessons, they can have their therapy in the school. Parents don't have to keep ferrying their children up and down from school to therapy, but just outsource that department to me, and that will allow you to be able to take on these children. So that's how I found myself in this space, and I think for the first time, my eyes were opened to the struggles that parents face, which I had not seen it from this perspective, and just realized that there's a lot of work to do out here. There's a lot of work to do. So that's how I came into this space.
Thank you. That story is just good because you see, as an educator, well, you don't have a family member with challenges, but as an educator, you saw the child, the opportunity, and you did not leave any child behind. And here you are trying to advocate for those children who are in your school to other directors who may not possibly have seen that opportunity or the need or the concern. Wow, that is beautiful story. Wow, wow. So that is how you got yourself really working with persons with disability.
Correct.
Wow,
Yes.
and you love it.
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
I think sometimes the drive even kind of overtakes me. If I can just give you one example.
Yes.
You know, when you make a lot of noise about advocacy, I'm sure you as parents,
Yes.
you know this.
Yes.
When you make a lot of noise here, there about advocacy and trying to help people, because I realize there's so much ignorance, Pastor Karen. And I'm not just talking about directors, I'm talking about education in general, teachers who've been trained, even sometimes special needs teachers. They've gone through the training, but now when the rubber meets the road, they're really not too sure what to do.
What to do.
They're like, what is this IEP thing? What curriculum designs should I use? How do I handle these children? There's a lot of ignorance. So these are the same educators who are supposed to be educating your children, all right? Who are
True, true,
struggling
true. Yes.
like this.
Yes.
And then there is the community, because our children don't live in school.
They don't.
They live in the estate.
Yes.
So even in the estate, I started making noise and
Yeah.
saying, don't you know, you people need to know about disability. We cannot continue at this level of ignorance. Really? We cannot.
Wow.
So you can imagine
Wow.
making this amount of noise. In some groups, they were just like, you know what, I think you're being a bit too much. I think, just
Beautiful.
tone it down. And I was telling them, you know what, I'm not about to tone it down, because I think we are decades behind in advocacy and in inclusion.
Yes.
So we need to do a catch-up game. So
Wow.
there is no time to lose. So it is you to just get used to my noise.
And live with it.
Catch up.
Catch up.
You catch up. Yeah.
Wow, beautiful story right there. Now, back to you, Juliana, with Phoebe, your baby.
Yes.
How has it been bringing her up and accessing school? You can give us that story about access. Remember, today the focus is on education. So we are going to zero in there. And as a parent, you have a first-hand information and experience as well.
Yeah, remember Phoebe has 2 complex disabilities. And one of her disability, which is Spina Bifida, makes her socially not inclusive. Why? Because she cannot control her bowel and bladder function.
Wow.
That makes her smelly.
Okay.
And so that was a struggle I had when I was looking for a school for my daughter.
And that is at primary school level, or that grade, really, of course.
It was at kindergarten level, where you start your education level. And so most of the schools where I would take my daughter to would tell me, no, we cannot take a child who will make the entire school smell.
Wow. Wow.
So you know, when a mother wants to give her child the best, and they go to look for this education, which is an equalizer, I'm saying in quotes,
True.
an equalizer,
Yes.
and is the key to life. And then someone who is a professional denies you the opportunity at that time, it really breaks you as a parent. And so first my daughter had to undergo a training on bowel and bladder control.
Wow.
Yeah, so she has to empty her bladder after every 3 hours.
Okay.
And her bowel in the morning and in the evening. And this emptying of the bladder is not the way we go to the washroom. The things we do in seconds, a few minutes. For us, it is a whole process where you have to, actually the place has to be accommodative. You have to wash your hands, meaning you must access clean water. And the child has to be comfortable so that you are able to locate the urethra and insert the intermittent catheter to pull out the urine.
Oh, really?
Yes. So after my daughter, after I was trained actually on the bowel and bladder program, and how I time and train the bladder to empty only after a given time. So this This 3-hourly emptying of the bladder is to classically train the bladder
Yes.
to empty at a given time.
Wow. Wow.
So that is when now I would really advocate. And I ended up even training the school fraternity about this condition.
Wow.
That is when they accepted my child.
Wow.
Yes.
So was that Ivan Media's house, was that a day school or was it a boarding scenario?
Phoebe began in a regular day school. Yes.
But every morning, of course, you have to take her there.
So I would empty her bladder in the morning. I take her to school. And then when it gets to 9:30, I am there in school.
Now, does that mean that you are carrying her to school or she can walk?
Initially, she could walk.
Yes.
When she was young.
Yeah.
She didn't have challenges with her spine like she has them now.
Yeah.
But later on, we got a wheelchair to ease the mobility.
Ease the mobility.
So I would wheel her to school. But I would go empty her bladder at break time, 9:30, and at lunch hour, and then bring her home in the evening. Yes.
Wow, wow. Quite a story there.
Yeah.
So, wow. You had to educate the entire school fraternity, or rather, the people close to her.
Oh,
the
yes.
people in class, the teachers, the caregivers around school, if there are any, so that we are able to ensure that she's comfortable. So
Yeah.
now, let's talk about access. How difficult is it? How easy is it even to be able to move? For people to move to go to school, people living with disabilities, children living with disability, from their houses to school. How easy is it? You can tell us in a few minutes, and then teacher Rose will continue from there.
I think access starts from the house. How accessible are our homes?
Yes.
Some of us just survive in our homes. And you know, we say there's no place like home. And if you're surviving in your home, what about a school?
Wow.
So getting from home to school, for us we had to incorporate, we had to improvise and talk to the teachers that we can put some piece of wood here and elevate it.
Yes.
To make a temporary ramp.
Wow. Wow.
Yes. If there's no proper washroom, we can get a plastic chair and cut in the middle and put a basin and turn it into a toilet.
Wow.
Because most of the toilets in schools are the ones that are on the floor. You don't sit on them. They don't have a seat.
True.
Yes.
Wow. Access.
Yeah. Access is quite a barrier.
And even for those who cannot walk, the mothers have to carry them?
Oh yes, we have carried the children on these backs. You know, we carry our children on these backs until we feel like we are the ones who have the disability sometimes. Yes.
Wow. Educationist Rose, how easy is it to access education? Just accessing education.
Yeah. And I totally agree with what Juliana is saying. She says access begins from home.
Yes.
I'm trying to imagine what it's like on public transport.
True.
You want your child to go to school, you would even want them to even use a matatu if they can't have a,
True.
A school bus.
Yes.
But which matatu will take your child who has a wheelchair?
Yeah.
And of course, that even if you say, okay, I'll pay for the extra seat, that's extra cost, right?
Yeah.
And remember, this is a parent who's already struggling with, it's not just the school fees they're paying for. They are paying for therapy.
Yes.
They are paying for maybe medication. They
Diapers.
need to go for, diapers. There you go. Extra procedures that probably need assessment here and there.
True.
The costs are already so high for this parent. And apart from physical accessibility, we're also talking about when you take a child to school, and it's understandable. Remember, I'm an educator, so I wear the shoes on the other side. So I know when a school tells a parent with whose child has got special needs that they need to pay a little bit more, I know where they're coming from.
The school.
Yes,
Yeah.
I know where they're coming from because it means extra care.
Yeah.
If it means a shadow teacher, if let's say, for example, like Juliana's daughter, you would want somebody to be there who is dedicated to that child.
True.
So that if mommy cannot come to empty the bowel, can there be somebody who will be there who's available for her to empty the bowel for her? Make sure she's clean after that. Bring her back to class. Ensure that she's actually engaging with the others. If she's in a wheelchair, can I take her out into the field to play with the others so that she's not left in class and therefore becomes a social misfit? So I understand where the school is also coming from in terms of that extra cost.
Yes.
But it still doesn't reduce the cost for the parent. The
the
fact that I
parent as well,
understand it
yeah.
does not reduce anything. But it is, accessibility is not only in terms of physical accessibility,
yes.
but also what she's talking about, rejection. If there is anything that I believe parents who have got special needs have experienced over and over again, it is rejection.
It's rejection.
Left, right, and center. Trying to find accessibility for education, and they cannot get.
Wow,
education.
it is indeed true, because I've heard stories about mothers who try to take their children to school, even with on their backs. And by the time they try to stop a matatu and the matatu sees that this is a big child on the back, and getting into a matatu, getting to that Nissan, turning around, they just take off.
Exactly.
And they leave you there stranded.
Yes.
I've also had cases where you wheel the child on a wheelchair towards a matatu. Once they see the wheelchair, they just take off.
Yes.
Because they don't know what to do. They don't have the patience. So you are saying stigma.
And another thing I would like to add, Pastor Karen.
Yeah.
We live in a society, I believe, that understands disability as something that is visible. But when it is not visible, it's even much harder to understand.
Yeah.
And those are the children who unfortunately sometimes are called mwenda. You know, that child must just be mad, and that's just it, because of ignorance. And some people just simply say, this child does not have a disability, they're just pretending.
They're pretending.
Or it's poor parenting that is the result of this child being the way they are. And so when they go to school, even they cannot get education because your child maybe can't sit down because of hyperactivity.
Yes.
Or they haven't mastered the milestones that they should have mastered. So maybe at 4 years, the child is not potty trained. Or at 7 years, or 11 years, the child is not potty trained.
Wow. Yeah.
So you're coming in with diapers and
It's like,
educators are looking at you like, excuse me? You know, what am I supposed to be doing with diapers here in school? You know, this is not a daycare.
Yes.
But it's a lack of understanding. That children with special needs sometimes have delayed milestones.
True.
But it doesn't mean that they cannot catch up.
They can.
They can.
Wow.
With the necessary
Wow.
help
Wow.
and therapy.
Wow, this is a very good, viewers, I hope you can hear the discussion. We are hearing a discussion of the access to education, as Horace Mann said, that education is the greatest equalizer for all conditions of men. But even as we discuss here, you can be able already to see whether indeed it is an equalizer. We are here to discuss this matter, and by the end of this show, you'll be able to make your own conclusion whether indeed education as it is known, whether it can equalize everyone, especially for persons with disability. We are just about to go to a short break, but I want to actually right now invite someone, invite a friend to invite a friend. You know somebody who possibly has a child living with disabilities in your neighborhood. Please tell them to tune in. Peradventure, they may get some help, or even to know that they are not alone. You may even be having a young mother who just gave birth the other day and has a child with special needs, and they are feeling like the world is coming to an end. Let them tune into this channel to hear that indeed there is hope. And we are together, and together we can be able to socially network with them and give them a helping heart or give them a supporting shoulder. So please don't touch that dial. Just we are going for a very short break. When we come back, we are going to hear more about education for persons with disability. Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere.
Explore a world of knowledge at Elevation Bookshop. Dive into topics like marriage, money, and spiritual growth with our vast reading materials. But that's not all. We are thrilled to introduce new additions like stationeries, notebooks, modeling clay, dictionaries, pencils, kamusi, and more. And calling all students, gear up for success with our back-to-school items, providing you with everything you need to excel in every subject. At Elevation Bookshop, we're here to assist you in finding the perfect resources for your journey. Do you have specific preferences or looking for something special? Visit us at Kenya Cinema Plaza, mezzanine floor, or contact us on 0748 902 225. Elevation Bookshop. Enrich your life. Looking for a school that provides a solid foundation for your little one? Lozi Christian School is now admitting children from 2 to 6 years old from January 2025. At Lozi Christian School, we understand that every child is unique. Our qualified and experienced teachers ensure that each child gets the personalized attention they need. Our beautiful classrooms are designed to stimulate learning and spark curiosity, offering a rich environment that caters to every child's developmental stage. And we provide balanced meals, snacks, and lunch to keep your little one healthy and energized throughout the day. With a Christian approach, we focus on the holistic growth of every child. Give your child the start of a strong start in life with a school that truly cares. Enroll today. Don't miss this opportunity to give your child the best start. Visit us off Kasarani Mweki Road or call us now at +254 758 396 110. Lozi Christian School, a foundation for the future.
And today is a special again. We are talking about disability and education. We are just discussing on matters accessing education and how possible it is for persons with disability, all persons with disability, to achieve education. And I want to appreciate the many people that are watching online. I see Prophet Jael Mokema is watching from Laikipia. Thank you very much. I see Phoebe Achieng. Congratulations, ma'am. That must be your daughter, Phoebe.
Yes, yes.
Wow. Then again, I see Fred Muli, advocacy and awareness is key to inclusivity. I see Anes Kiptarus, you are tuned in. Alexander Masharia is tuned in from Kiambu. Anes Kiptarus, inclusion is very key here. Thanks, Juliana. Then I see Karen Mihaki is also following. Fred Muri is also following. Purity Sebei is following. In our last conversation, there was a question about one of the viewers asked a question. So after education, or after, so to speak, primary school, if I remember the question correctly, what next for persons with disability who possibly may not go to the university or to college? Because I am aware that in the primary school education, children and persons living with disability can linger there for some time, up to a certain age, actually way above the primary school going age. But after that, can they stay forever in that school? What happens after that? So maybe we can hear briefly from Juliana, because she can talk about Phoebe. After school, what next? Did she excel and go to the university, to college? Just try to respond to that, viewer.
Thank you so much, viewers, for your responses and the question. Indeed, when you hear someone has to empty their bladder after every 3 hours, you wonder how they are even able to go through education. And given that when Phoebe was in school, we were still using the 844 system, which was more result-oriented as opposed to the CBC system that I love. I wish Phoebe was just doing CBC. Because I find CBC to be very accommodative to the needs of our children with special needs. However, despite the challenges, Phoebe was able to go through primary education. And I want to applaud one person, Mrs. Sabina Onyango, head teacher, Our Lady of Mercy Primary. That lady was so amazing. She was motherly, she accepted Phoebe, she loved her, and she even made her fellow students love my daughter. Our greatest challenge happened when Phoebe didn't do well in her final exam in primary 8. So transitioning from primary school to high school, then to college, was quite a hassle. She never wanted school. I think when you have a disability and you don't do well in school, as a person, you feel like now I am more of a burden to this society, to my mom. I have these conditions which are multiple, and then I still have, I'm not doing very well according to the society. The society brands you a smart person if you get straight A's.
True.
Yet, everyone has a gift and a talent that is needed in our society today. Look at the dresses we are wearing. A dressmaker made them. Look at the shoes we are wearing. Someone made them. And so Phoebe was able to go back to school after a break. Because when she did her class 8, we were able to take her to a school in Nairobi. And there is when I learned that my daughter had more than just challenges in her education, but also psychologically. It is something that one of the teachers told her. We have to be very careful with our words. Words always break or make. A word can make you into a person you never thought you could be. When somebody speaks something positive about your life. And a word can kill the little tiny hope you had of becoming a better person. So Phoebe was able to go back to school, and I looked for a secondary school I didn't get. So we had to take her back to primary school. For her to attain the grades that were required by the system so that she's able to now to go to high school. So she went through high school, she finished. She didn't get the A's. But for me, a person with such conditions like Phoebe's, going through KCSE and finishing and bringing you a certificate, to me that is an achievement.
Major achievement.
Most people give up. And so she has gone to college. She went to MEFA Institute of Design. And I also want to thank Akinyi for her patience with my daughter and for accommodating our needs. She developed a program for her needs.
Individualized program.
Yes. And she did her fashion and design course. And she's now an entrepreneur. She has her own business that she runs.
A business that she runs?
Yes.
Wow. What kind of business is this?
Now, Phoebe makes unique jewelry, which she accessorizes with items like beads, like metal, and she sells them. And she's so independent.
Just stop there. Viewers, did you hear that? Phoebe, despite living with disabilities, and not just one, multiple disabilities, has excelled, and she has pushed herself with the support of parents, and thank God for those that God brought her way, just to support her and encourage her. And today she's an entrepreneur. Wow. I must say congratulations to you, Phoebe, wherever you are. And I know, indeed, you are happy. And we are also very happy for you. And we are happy and we are cheering you on in your business. May you do well. So now, Tell me, educationist Rose, even as we hear this story, is that a common occurrence to all children? Are they all able to navigate and go all the way to complete school and possibly move on to other things like business? Yeah.
So I'd like to answer that question in two parts. One part is for us to define education. Because I think education has been defined in so many ways. I've had Juliana talk about 844, which had a sort of a different aim and a different product.
Yes.
Because when you look at education, you must look at the product of the education.
Yes.
And then now CBC comes in.
Yes.
And then of course there are the different curriculums that are available in the country, IGCSE and the likes,
Yeah.
ACE and others. But I think we're basically now focusing on the national curriculum. So, and the second part I would like to address is the current struggle. In the primary section, I feel that there is more accommodation. I'm not saying it is perfect, we still have a long way to go. But I feel like there is more accommodation when the children are younger than when they are older. I find that in high schools, there are very few high schools that you will go to that are inclusive.
Okay.
In fact, the other day we were having a conversation with
Yes.
some of my classmates in the high school that I went to, and which is really, really broke our hearts to realize that, hold on a minute, even our school was not inclusive.
Yes.
I mean, how many children did we see in wheelchairs?
We didn't.
We didn't see them.
No.
And which kind of makes you live in a bubble because you think there are no people with disabilities. Until you grow up and you realize, no, I believed a lie all along. And yet, a school is such a nice place to be able to learn how to be inclusive, how to learn to take care of one another. So I find that parents have more options when children are in
Younger.
primary, but now when they are moving on to high school, it's even harder to get a place to go, and even harder when it comes to the tertiary level. And you know what's happening, Pastor Karen? Why I said we need to define what education is.
Yeah.
Is education getting A's in KCSE? Is that what education is?
True.
Is education being to cram and memorize all the information that I got and then regurgitate it on my exam paper and get A's, and then therefore I am educated? Is that what education is? I beg
Don't
to
think so.
differ.
Yeah.
I believe that what education is
Yeah.
education should be able to bring the best out of you.
True.
What are you capable to do? Juliana has talked about Phoebe, who has her own business. What does that talk about? Her sense of business and business acumen.
True.
Her ability to design. If education is able to pull out these talents from her, and then she's able to use those talents to be able to be a member of society that is a contributing member of society. Unfortunately, our society tends to believe that we don't need people with disability. Actually, it's them who need us. But we are so wrong.
You're very wrong.
You know, what has happened to us is we who are typical have crippled those with disability with our horrible and terrible
Attitudes, yeah, you can say that again.
Because if I don't believe you are capable of anything, then there is a way I'm going to treat you.
True.
If all I think whenever I see you is you're just here because you need me and I don't need you. But we are so wrong. And I think the world stands to prove us wrong when we see the sort of things that people have done. Let's look at Kenya in itself. Look at Senator Crystal Asige and the position that she's holding.
True.
Look at all these other, there are so many people in our lives now. In Machakos, we have Honorable Kilonzo, who is a member of the county there. We have Emikos Gay's dad, who is a member. And these are the people who are out in the public that we know. But there are others who are doing amazing things whose names we do not know, maybe because of our own ignorance. So in terms of what comes next after primary, after high school, and into the tertiary level, it's not that it's not possible, but it's because we need to have the change of our mindset needs to change. So currently what's happening on the ground is that even though there are TVETs available, I'm sure those are areas you explored even when you were looking for a place for your daughter. Even though there are vocational colleges available, do you know what is actually happening in those colleges? There will be preference for typical students.
Yeah.
And even if on paper they say this percentage should be given to people with disabilities, the truth is it's not happening.
It's not happening.
Most of these people, if they get to reach end of high school, just go home and don't know what to do after that. It is not because they are not able. A number of people with disabilities have no cognitive issues, none whatsoever. Some are top of the notch. I know one amazing friend of mine who was a commissioner, one of the commissioners that wrote the Constitution.
Yeah.
Excellent mind, amazing personality, who's able to push forth even advocacy.
Yeah.
So I think it is us who cripple those with disability, but the places are, there are options for them.
Yeah.
And especially if we look at education as, what skill do you have?
Yeah.
Can I help you hone that skill, sharpen that skill, so that you are able to be a contributing member of society?
True. Yes. Indeed, it's very true and very saddening. But you see, most people, when they encounter persons with a disability, always are quick to see what they can't do.
The disability.
The disability, not the ability.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And these are people with amazing abilities. Even when you think about, and I want you to speak into this, educationists.
Yes, yes.
There are also those persons that may not learn ABCD. There are those children who may never learn cognitively, they're impaired.
Yes.
And they may never learn to read and write. In matters of education and the opportunity for them to access some form of education. What can we say about that? Can you make a comment about those? Have you encountered those?
Yes.
Yes.
So let me give an example of the children that I work with, because I tend to work a lot with children who are neurodiverse.
Yes.
And some may have cognitive challenges, some may be struggling with, just the ability to sit in class and learn. So what we do with children who are neurodiverse or may have some cognitive challenges is we focus on what we call 3 R's. Literacy, numeracy, and arithmetic. And these 3 areas, we are just talking about the basics.
They're basic.
We are talking about, can this child identify numbers?
Yes.
Can they identify letters? Can they
Beautiful.
be able to read 3-lettered words? And why do we want this to happen? We want this child to be able to at least identify that this is my name, I can write my name. I can be able, I try to encourage parents and educators to start with the end in mind.
True.
This child will not always be 4 years.
Yeah.
Your daughter is now 30 years.
Yes.
That's a grown-up adult who's now running a business on her own. Start with the end in mind. I will not always be there for my student to read road signs. The day that child will walk out of my house at 20 and decide they're going to the supermarket to get some bread, and then now they can't read the road signs, at least have a basic understanding of reading,
Beautiful.
writing,
Yeah.
and that numeracy and literacy, just a basic understanding. Where the challenge comes in, Pastor Karen, is the how to.
How to.
Because unfortunately with children who are neurodiverse, they don't learn the same way as every other child.
It's true.
Yes.
True.
So you had me mention earlier about the Montessori system.
Yeah.
I really love the Montessori system. Why? Because it gives hands-on material when it comes to learning.
Okay.
So that instead of that teacher being up there in front and writing with a chalk, this is the letter, this child cannot even give you attention because they don't have eye contact.
Yeah, true.
Their focus and attention is not there. They're hyperactive. They're all over the place. You need to find material that helps that child be able to focus. And most of the times, you have to move as a teacher from concrete learning to abstract learning. So that's what I would say.
Thank you very much. That is enlightening. And I hope viewers, you are following this and hearing that indeed it's important to give every child an opportunity, even as a parent, for them to have, or rather, be able to bring out the best potential in them and the maximum potential in them. Juliana, for children who are multiply disabled, who may only learn daily skills of living, can you just make a comment on them? I know you have encountered quite a number in terms of, some parents choose to just ignore them and keep them at home and say this one, or that, or know that, because they may not learn to even read, even recognize. What can you say about that, Juliana? Speak to a parent and just encourage them.
I think what I can say is that all of us who are alive in this world are in this world for a purpose. What is the purpose of that child in this life? Regardless of the disability, what is the purpose? So as parents, we need to be very intentional when we are listening to what the society says. Some of us have listened to the society to a point whereby we want to please the society more than we want to please our children, or even more than we want to please God, as we take care of these blessings from God. So the society paints a picture that if you don't take your child to school, you are abusing this child. And this is a child, even if they go to school, they may not really grasp. Even what my sister Rose is saying, that reading a 3-letter word may not really sink in. Stop stressing the child with the education. Look for something that this child can do and be happy about, and do with passion.
Unless, of course, you take them to school just to socialize, because that is also learning. Then they can be in a class together. They're just socializing. One is here, the other is there, the other is there. Because we have very few a class like that.
And if a school can accommodate such, and not task the child to do an exam and bring a lot of ease and frustrate the child, then I believe that will be the best model to accommodate these children and their needs.
Thank you.
Yes.
Pastor Karen, may I add a little bit to what she has just mentioned? Some of the hindrances of some schools receiving children, and I've heard this being said maybe by school owners, managers, and so on, maybe even board members. They say, if I take that child with disability, because you talked about, will this child be made to sit for an exam? Currently with CBC, there is KIPSEA and KILEA. KIPSEA being for typical children and KILEA being for special children. I would just like to reassure that school owner who's probably tuned in today and is wondering, if I take this child in, will the grades of my school be affected? Because that has been asked a lot of times. And my encouragement to you is that actually these children are not graded the same. There is a special exam for special children, and there is another, we don't call them exams anymore, but assessments for typical children, and an assessment for the special children. So please open your doors. Open your doors, and let's start bit by bit receiving these children.
Thank you very much. I hear you, and I think there is an opportunity for everyone then. But you see also, but let's think about people in rural Kenya. Here we are already seeing the challenges around the city. But envision a parent in Garissa, a parent in Meru or Kakamega, wherever, Taita, wherever, and they have a child with special needs. Here we can talk about what we have seen. What is going on there? What can we say? Because Kenya really is talking about Millennium Development Goals and now Sustainable Development Goals, which emphasizes universal education for all. But what's happening there? If these are already challenges in the city, what about their education is Rose? Can you figure out that and tell us what you think is going on there?
So the Sustainable Development Goal, number 4, talks about quality education.
True.
And quality education is defined as being inclusive, And even within the urban areas, let's talk about Nairobi. Already there are challenges in Nairobi, which is supposed to be probably leading. And the parents who I talk to who are not within Nairobi are even having greater challenges.
True.
However, there, as we said earlier, there is hope and there is a solution. For those parents who are not necessarily within Nairobi, or even those who are within Nairobi, you had Juliana talk about the fact that right now you may or may not find a school that will accept your child. But I want to plead with you parents, by the time you find a school that will accept your child, would you please consider even homeschooling that child?
True.
Would you consider looking for, there are special needs teachers who are very good at homeschooling, who can come and be dedicated to your child. When it comes to socializing, can your child find a place where they can be meeting? Talk to the schools around and say, can I be bringing my child on Fridays during your games day? Just for them to be around, and the special needs teacher can accompany that child and go and socialize. So rather than keep that child at home and say, oh, I haven't found a school, and so they fall behind, and then when your child reaches 20, you now realize, oh my goodness, my child is going to be an adult, what is going to become of them? And parents, if I don't know whether this would encourage you even more, to remember that God has given us these beautiful children. But you know, life does not guarantee us as parents that we will always be there for our children. So what can we do? What can you do now to prepare your child if, God forbid, you are not to be there for your child? Because you are now your child's environment, you are your child's protection, you are your child's everything. If you are not to be there, wouldn't you want your child to have some skills, something that they can be able to do? That, I hope, would encourage you a little bit to please don't just wait until you find the school. If the schools are not available, would you please consider having a teacher coming home to teach your child? And I know that sometimes there is an issue of cost. Even if it is once a week, start with that once a week rather than nothing. Then if you can make it twice a week, well and good. But also we do need the government to come in for sure to be able to make this SDGs attainable, make education inclusive, make it equitable. And remember, Pastor Karen, we are not talking about equality. We are talking about equity. So that the blind person gets braille. That makes education relatively equitable for them. So that the deaf person has a sign language. So that the children with autism have learning support centers rather than get thrown out and be told your child cannot sit down. We're talking about equity here. But there is a need for the government to step in.
And I'll add, even those ones with multiple disabilities who cannot talk, who cannot even walk or anything, they can be given materials to play with.
Absolutely.
Just to touch and play with.
Absolutely.
Now, our time is running out, but I want to recognize Alexander Masharia, who is also tuned in and is saying congratulations. I want to acknowledge Graham Ndidi, congratulations, Teacher Rose, and then the virtual Montessori is watching and following. Alexander says, what an inspiring story about Phoebe. Then Patricia Duge is tuned in from Lolongo. Congratulations, Ma'am Phoebe. Then Godfrey, yes, my people tuned in. Catherine Moredi is saying, great discussion. Again, Alexander Mashade is saying, education is meant to bring out the best in you and make you fit as a member of society. Thank you very much. Those are very many comments. And I also want to appreciate all the others that are watching from all the other social media, including Facebook. Now, just as we wrap up, because our time is running out, can you imagine? We've barely touched any discussion and time is running out. Now, what do you think? We are talking about government saying something, or government doing something. But I remember initially when the issues of disability were the limelight, and I'm not saying they are not. We would have barazas where the chief, the community barazas, and people would be told, take your children to school, even those living with disabilities. I no longer hear about barazas today. I don't know what has happened, but what is it that you would expect the community to do in 2 seconds before you give your parting shot?
So are we talking about the community in general or the government?
In general.
The community in general.
Yes.
Number one, to get rid of ignorance, because it is these negative attitudes that are crippling people with disability. To learn to embrace, especially in our African culture, we tend to think that disability has to do with witchcraft. True. Like, what did this person do? You know, all these sort of things. If you have a mentality, let me speak as an educator. If I, as a teacher, assume that any person with disability has disability as a result of witchcraft, then I don't need to educate that child. That child just simply needs to go for deliverance.
True.
So I will not put in any effort as a teacher to include that child even in my preparation of the lesson. Because I'm not a pastor, I don't do deliverance, so, you know, you understand? I will ignore that child.
Yes.
If anything, most children, even in schools that say they have inclusive education, that child is just inclusive. They're in the class, but really there is not much planning that is going on. So in terms of our community, number one, please let's get rid of ignorance. Please let us realize that people with disabilities are not second-class citizens.
Thank you.
This too is their country.
Yes.
They have the same rights as those with typical, who are typical.
Yeah.
They have the same, they are not second-class citizens. They have a right to demand their place.
Thank you very much. Juliana, your parting shot. Our time is out.
My parting shot is that we have been told a lot about education being the key to success, about education being the equalizer. For me, education is understanding who you are, knowing your capacities, and how you are going to apply them in the day-to-day life that you have. So as parents, let us not push our children beyond their abilities. Let us appreciate their abilities and support them to achieve more where they are able.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Viewers, that brings us to the end of this GG report tonight. You have heard for yourselves. So if you have any other question, please do not hesitate to write to Elevate TV, and then we'll be able to access the questions and we can answer you in the future. Now, we are going to wrap it up here, and until we meet again, possibly another GG report next Friday, I've been your host, Karen Gigi, and we all say bye-bye for now. Let's say bye-bye to our viewers. Bye.
Bye-bye for now.
Thank you very much for tuning in.